There was a moment, a tiny touch or a single look that didn't just stir them, it rewired them. They tried to tuck you back into the safe, sensible life that made sense on paper, but something in that void you met in showed them color for the first time. What looked small at the split, a whisper of a change, has sent both of your lives spinning onto completely different roads. You didn't just nudge their path, you pulled an entire timeline out from under them, and now even their silence echoes like a confession. They feel your gravity. They know stepping closer would mean losing the comfort that kept them safe, so for now they hold distance. And divine feminine, that distance is why you still feel the ache, a magnetic, impossible longing that won't quiet until truth or timing brings those two paths back together. Hello, soul family. Welcome to Spiritual Manifestation. If this is your first time, welcome. If not, I'm glad to have you home. I just want to take a moment to say how grateful I am that you're here, because the energy that's already coming through feels powerful. And I can tell this message is meant for someone who truly needs it today. Before we dive in, a quick reminder, if you feel called to go deeper, the extended readings and extra guidance are always available on Patreon and through YouTube memberships. That's where we get into the longer, more personal layers of these messages, and it's a beautiful space to connect on a deeper level. And while you're here, don't forget to support the channel by liking this video, leaving a comment below, and sharing this reading with someone who may need to hear it. Your energy in this community makes such a difference, and I love reading your thoughts and reflections. Now let's go ahead and shuffle the deck together. Spirit, we ask you to guide us in this moment, to bring through the clearest and most aligned messages for those listening. As I set the energy for this reading, I can already feel the cards beginning to stir, and I know something important is ready to come through. I just pulled the Two of Cups, and this feels so right for what Spirit is bringing in. Divine feminine. This is about a soul meeting that wasn't random. It wasn't light. It wasn't just a passing connection. This was activation. You and this person met in a space that didn't look or feel like your normal world, and Spirit is calling it the void. It was a strange in-between where nothing looked familiar, but somehow it felt more alive than anything else. It was the kind of place that pulls two people from different lives, from different timelines, into one single moment. And in that moment, something inside both of you woke up. And here's the thing. You didn't just bump into each other. You collided on a soul level. That collision shook both of your paths in ways you couldn't see at first. Spirit keeps showing me the image of a road that splits off. At first, it looks like a small turn, almost nothing, just a quiet shift. But if you follow those roads far enough down, miles and miles away, the difference becomes huge. Almost like you're living entirely different lives from the ones you would have had. That's what happened here. To anyone else, it might have looked like a small meeting, maybe even forgettable. But to your soul, that one meeting sent both of you down timelines that will never be the same again. For you, Divine Feminine, it didn't just stir your emotions, it hit all at once. It was hard-hitting, fast-moving, like your whole body and soul processed it in a single breath. And that was overwhelming. I feel like you carried the weight of this encounter deeply, like being hit with emotions that didn't make sense in the physical world. People around you may have questioned it. Maybe they even asked, Why are you so affected by this person? And you couldn't explain it because the truth is, this was never about logic. This wasn't something you could put into words that would satisfy anyone who hadn't felt it. This was alchemy. This was a soul shift. And while you processed everything in one sweep, they didn't. You were hit with it like a tidal wave, while they tried to hold back and make sense of it little by little. That's why it felt confusing. That's why your emotions seemed to come all at once, like grief and joy mixing together in your chest. You knew on some level that this wasn't just an ordinary meeting. You knew that what looked small from the outside was actually a detour that would change everything. And Spirit is saying, you were right. And here's the thing. On some level, they felt like they didn't belong in your world. Being with you felt too bright, too honest, too holy in a way that scared their mind. They might have felt guilty, like they were trespassing on something sacred, and so instead of staying with that feeling, they tried to shove it somewhere else. Sometimes they pushed that strange rush of love or longing into another person or situation, hoping it would fit there. But you and I both know you can't make a round peg fit a square hole forever. So they tried to make sense of it the only way their head knew how: logic. They told themselves they could keep you as a friend, or that this was just a brief flare that would pass. For a while, that story soothed them. But every time they tried to return to the safe, sensible life, they felt the pull of what you opened inside them, like a compass needle that won't stop turning. That tug kept showing them the truth. The old map no longer fit the landscape they had now seen. Because of that, they stepped back. Not because they didn't care, but because moving closer would mean losing the neat, known life that made sense to their mind. They chose distance as a way to hold both worlds at once, even though that was impossible. And while they hold that distance, the energy between you keeps humming, quiet, persistent, impossible to fully erase. Know this: what you woke in them is real, and it will not be hidden by stories or by time. It has already changed both of your directions. So if you've been feeling like you're carrying something too big, or like you're the only one who noticed how powerful this was, remember this. The reason others don't understand is because this wasn't their path to carry. It was yours. And you felt it because you were awake enough to know the difference. You could sense that something sacred was happening, even if it didn't fit into words, and even if it didn't match what was happening in the physical. I just pulled the moon. Let's see what Spirit wants to whisper through that fog. Divine Feminine, this meeting might have left you feeling a little unsteady, like you were losing your grip on what felt real. You may have thought you were going crazy at times, because the feelings this person stirred were strange and huge, like one wave of pure soul joy, and then right after it, a wave of deep soul grief. It came fast, like one tide hitting and another answering, and sometimes it felt like you were riding both at once. That's why your head and your heart felt so loud and messy after. It wasn't only a feeling of wow, it was also a quiet, aching loss that arrived right on its heels. And the way you handled it was different. You processed all of it in one breath, a sudden, full-on alchemy, while they seemed to take it apart slowly, piece by piece. That's why it felt confusing. You went through the whole shift almost at once, and they were still trying to make sense of what had happened. You were left with this raw mix of joy and grief because your soul was doing the deep work right away, and that's heavy. It can feel like being hit by something huge and then having to explain to people who've never felt that force why you look like you do. There's also this sense of lifetimes between you, like you and this person have met before, and that small, strange meeting now woke up something very old. I get the feeling you both ended up somewhere you weren't supposed to be, like you wandered onto sacred ground together and it shocked you both. For them, being with you may have felt almost wrong because your light was so pure or your space felt so holy. That can make someone feel guilty, like they're stepping where they don't belong. And guilt makes people pull back fast. Because of that guilt or strange unease, they tried to move what they felt onto someone else, or into a relationship that looks safer on paper. In other words, they took the energy you sparked in them and tried to shove it into their old story, into a familiar partner or pattern, hoping it would fit there. But it never really fit, did it? It was like trying to pour a bright color into a bottle already full of gray. It just sat on top, obvious and wrong. They kept pretending the old life was fine because the new feeling didn't make sense to their mind. Now, this won't be true for everyone. Take this where it lands for you. But for many in this group, meeting you marked a quiet ending of a contract they were living. Spirit shows me that the old karmic loop they were in started to unravel the moment you showed up. Even if they kept playing the same part outwardly, inside something had already broken and shifted. Their head said, "Stay," because it made sense, but their heart was tugging them toward you, toward the unknown. They tried, at first, to act like nothing had changed. Outwardly, they kept the same routine, said the same things, and stayed where it felt safe. But small cracks started to show. You may have noticed them slipping, saying words that didn't match their eyes, or trying too hard to make ordinary moments feel ordinary again. Inside, they felt the pull you left behind, and that tug kept tugging at them, even while they pretended it wasn't there. Those little slips add up, and over time the old story slowly begins to fray at the edges. So they did what felt easiest to the mind. They tried to pour the energy you sparked into what was already familiar. They pushed it into the person or pattern that used to hold them, hoping it would stick. But it didn't really fit. It felt forced and thin, like painting bright color over dull gray and expecting it to look the same. Each time they tried to make that old life hold, a new truth nudged through the surface, showing them the difference between what was safe and what was real. That quiet mismatch grew louder in private, even if no one else could see it yet. What that means for you is this: time will reveal what the heart already knows. The unraveling is usually slow and secret, a quiet loosening behind the scenes that eventually has to be faced. They might stay for a while trying to keep both worlds, but you already changed the map inside them. Something was broken open that will not go back into the same shape. So breathe, divine feminine. You did not break this, and you do not need to fix it. Hold your truth softly, and trust that the path you set in motion will lead both of you toward what you each truly need. So you need to hear this plainly. You changed their path. You ended something for them on a soul level, even if they didn't know how to name it. And because you felt it so fully and all at once, you've been left carrying the weight of that change, the ecstasy of having found something real and the grief of having to let it go while the other person sorted themselves out. Hold that feeling gently. It's real. It came from a place deeper than logic, and it has already rewritten parts of both your stories. I just pulled judgment. Spirit wants us to sit with that wake-up energy for a moment. Divine Feminine, here's the plain truth. When you showed up in their life, something in them quietly dissolved. The old pull they had toward that safe, sensible story began to evaporate. It didn't happen all at once in the way their mind could understand. Instead, meeting you put a face and a name to a hollow feeling they'd been carrying for a long time. And suddenly that hollow had a shape. That gap that used to feel like nothing now looked like something real. And it made their old life feel strangely thin beside what you sparked. So they tried to patch the feeling where they knew how, with the familiar. They tried to shove that strange new intensity into the person or pattern that used to hold them. They told themselves stories that made sense on paper. We can make this work, or I can stay here and still feel alive. But you and I both know you can't glue a new color onto old paint and expect it to look whole. It never fit right because the energy you awoke in them wanted a different home. That's why, even after they walked away or went quiet in the physical, you still feel the thread between you. They haven't truly cut the line. On the surface, they may be gone, but underneath, they keep reaching. Not always with words, but with that pull that keeps surfacing when they think they've moved on. You've done the work to transmute and heal on your end, and yet waves of this still come up because the other side hasn't fully closed the door. They are redirecting the feeling, yes, but it sits on top of the old life like a loose cloth, obvious and uneasy. And because they tried to force it into what was safe, they can feel the emptiness in their attempts. Even when they act like everything is normal, there's a hollow that won't fill. They notice the difference inside themselves, a quiet knowing that something isn't right, even if they can't name it yet. That tiny sense, that little, "Did you hear that?" moment was actually the soul noticing the contract was over. They brushed it off at first, but the seed had been planted. This shift is subtle in the moment, but huge over time. It's like a small turn on a road that looks tiny at first, and then miles later you realize you are somewhere entirely new. Give it time, because the full picture of how you changed them will often take a while to show up in the physical world. What you did is already written into both of your maps, even if the map hasn't yet been unfolded for everyone to see. They will keep testing the edges for a while, stepping close, then pulling back, saying the safe words because that script is known and comfortable. When they step near, you might feel a sudden warmth or a flash of déjà vu, like a radio catching a signal for a beat. Then they step away again because their mind gets frightened by how different everything feels. That push and pull can be frustrating for you, I know. It makes the waiting heavy. But it also shows they are trying to work out how to live with what you opened inside them. While they do this, your life keeps moving forward too. You won't be stuck in the same moment unless you choose to be. Little by little, you will notice new choices coming easier, new things lighting you up that used to feel dull. That piece of you that woke up won't go back to sleep just because the other person moved away. You'll start to make decisions that match the new voice inside you, the one that remembers color and won't settle for gray. There will be moments when it feels like a loss, and that's okay. Grief and relief can live in the same space. You can miss what was and also be grateful for what woke up because of it. Let yourself feel that fully without fixing it or explaining it to anyone. Cry if you need to. Celebrate quietly when you notice growth, and give yourself permission to hold both things at once: the pain of the passing and the joy of your new knowing. Remember, boundaries are gentle tools, not punishments. If their pull becomes too confusing or draining, it's okay to step back and guard your heart while you heal. Protect your energy with kind limits, like not answering late-night calls when you're fragile, or saying no to conversations that pull you into old places. Those small acts of care help you keep walking on the path you're building, even while the other person figures out theirs. So rest into this knowing. You did not force anything unnatural. You merely showed up, and that showing up changed the shape of their inner world. That change is real, it is active, and even when they try to patch the old story, the truth keeps nudging through. Keep trusting your process, divine feminine. The echoes of what you started will continue to reveal themselves in time. Before we pull the next card, I just want to pause for a moment and check in with you. How has this been resonating with you so far? If something in these first 3 cards has already spoken to your heart, let me know in the comments. I love reading how these messages meet you right where you are. All right, let's go ahead and see what Spirit has for us as we pull the next card. I just pulled the Star. Let's sit with that gentle, healing light for a moment. Divine Feminine, here's what Spirit wants to say plainly. Meeting you changed their inner weather. The pull they once felt to that safe, familiar person, the one who made sense on paper, quietly faded the moment you showed up. It didn't snap off like a switch so much as slowly unwind, and now trying to keep that old bond alive would mean lying to themselves again and again. Truth is, the deeper feeling has already been shut off at a soul level. So while they may act like everything is fine for now, the heart of that old story is fraying, and what they once thought would last simply won't, unless they keep forcing a fit that never truly holds. Something real passed between you in that meeting, an exchange of energy that still moves through both of you. On your side, that exchange woke something that had been sleeping, something so quiet you might not even have noticed until it opened. For some of you, it was a part of your joy. For others, it was the part that creates, or the part that loves without smallness. Whatever form it took, it came alive in their presence, and now it's turned into a steady drumbeat inside you that won't be silenced. You aren't meant to put that part back to sleep. You are meant to live from it. That awakening looks different for everyone. Maybe it was a sudden rush of lightness where you felt fully alive in your body for the first time in a long while. Maybe it was the return of a quiet hunger to make, to dream, to feel, or to love in a new way. And once that part of you woke up, it began guiding choices, small ones at first, then bigger ones, until you started moving toward a life that fits that new inner voice. That feeling is now part of your baseline. It's not extra or optional anymore. It's part of who you are becoming. Because you were changed so deeply, you can't easily go back to what used to feel normal. You will notice yourself saying no to things you once accepted, choosing differently, and protecting that new spark with quiet, steady boundaries. If this was a romantic change, you might find that love looks different to you now, cleaner, clearer, no more settling for crumbs. If it was creative or spiritual, you might find yourself making space for more light and more honesty in how you live. Either way, that shift has made certain things non-negotiable. I want you to hear this. You are not broken for feeling this way. If part of you had believed that your capacity to feel, to create, or to love was lost, this person reminded you otherwise. They didn't fix you. They reflected a truth you already carried. And that reflection woke you back into your full range. Now that you've seen it, you won't accept less. That is not anger or stubbornness. It's an honest realignment with what your soul knows is possible. You'll start to notice small shifts that feel like survival at first, but are really growth in disguise. Maybe you stop saying yes when your body tightens, or you choose work and people who light you up instead of drain you. These are not dramatic moves at once. They are tiny course corrections, a quiet boundary here, a new habit there. But over weeks and months, they add up into a whole new way of living that honors that bright part of you. Allow yourself to grieve what you lost and also to celebrate what you found. Both can sit in your chest together. Yes, the ache of what didn't last, and yes, the soft thrill of what woke up. Let the grief be honest. Let the joy be loud when it wants to be. Feeling both is part of the healing. It's how you make space for the new parts of yourself to grow roots. Keep reminding yourself this is not punishment or a mistake. It's a realignment. You will not be rushed into how you feel or who you become. Move with patience, keep your choices clear, and surround yourself with small rituals that feed the part of you that stayed awake. A quiet walk, a journal line, a song that makes you breathe. These tiny practices will protect that new light while the world catches up to who you are becoming. So move with tenderness toward yourself, divine feminine. This was always meant to help you step onto a truer path. The change is unfolding, quietly, sometimes painfully, but always toward more authenticity. Keep tending to the part they woke up in you. Protect it, feed it, and let it guide the next small steps. Over time, you'll see how that inner shift rewrites the life you are building, and you'll be glad you did not dim that light again. I just pulled the Ace of Cups. Let's sit with that open new heart energy for a moment. Divine feminine, what's come through here is that the pull this person once felt to their old safe story quietly faded the moment you arrived. You didn't just catch their eye, you gave shape to something inside them that had been empty for a long time, and suddenly that empty place had a face and a name. Because of that, they've been trying, often clumsily, to shove the love and intensity they feel for you back into the old container that used to hold them. They've tried to make that familiar life make sense again by pouring what they felt for you into the person or pattern they already knew, as if forcing a new color onto gray paint would somehow change the picture. But it never fits. The feeling you sparked is different by nature, and no amount of logic or effort can glue it into what used to be. You've probably worked hard to move on and transmute what came through, but sometimes waves still hit you because they didn't truly cut the line. Even when they walked away physically or went quiet, there's been a subtle thread still attached, a spiritual tether that keeps nudging both of you. So when they feel that sudden pull towards you, They try to redirect it into the relationship that used to hold them, and it shows up hollow on the inside. They can feel it too. They sense that funneling doesn't fill the hole. Even if they can't name the change, part of them notices the mismatch. The tiny, "Did you hear that?" inside that says something is different now. And listen, this doesn't mean you did something wrong by being alive in your own way. In truth, you ended a loop for them simply by being honest and bright enough to reflect what their soul had been missing. Meeting you unhooked a karmic contract they were playing out, even if they didn't realize it in the moment. At first, they might have shrugged it off, written the shift down to a strange day, or told themselves a practical story to soothe the mind. But underneath, the seed has been planted. Their path quietly began to bend away from what was familiar. It's subtle at first, a small turn in the road, but over time that turn grows into a different life map altogether. There's a physical detail in the memory that keeps surfacing, a little touch, a brush of hands, a flash of color like bright lipstick. That tiny thing sent a huge current through both of you. Maybe it wasn't literally lips or lipstick for everyone, but something about the way your presence reached them felt shockingly electric. That single moment opened their whole system in a way that the mind couldn't explain. After that, going back to the old, safe world felt flat and gray, like returning to black and white after seeing color for the first time. They understood, even if only faintly, that stepping closer to you again would mean leaving the neat life that made sense to their head. So they kept distance to protect that old world, even while inside something new kept growing. That little detail, the brush of hands, the spark of presence, might seem small on the outside, but Spirit shows me it was the very thing that pulled back the veil. For them, it was disorienting, almost scary, because it exposed a depth they had never let themselves feel. And for you, it was confirmation that what your soul already knew was true. Connections like this are rare, and when they happen, they leave you changed forever. That's why it lingers. That's why even silence can't erase it. And here's the truth, divine feminine. No amount of distance can undo what was exchanged in that spark. They may try to cover it, to reason it away, to keep walking the familiar path, but the imprint lives inside them. It will whisper to them in quiet moments, in dreams, in flashes of memory when they least expect it. You may not see the whole unfolding yet, but Spirit says the seed planted is alive. It grows underneath the surface, waiting for its season to rise. All of this is to say, you are not a small thing in their life. You were a turning point. You gave them a taste of a different way of being, loving, creating, dreaming. And now that possibility has been sown deep inside both of you. That seed won't vanish just because the person chose comfort for a while. It sits there, quiet and persistent, nudging them in ways they can't always control. Breathe with that knowing, divine feminine. The change you sparked is real, it's gentle and fierce, and it will continue to work itself out in time. Protect your heart, but also trust that what you awakened is meant to hold you in brighter colors. I just pulled the lovers, and Spirit couldn't have given us a clearer way to close this reading. Divine Feminine, what happened between you and this person wasn't ordinary. You cracked something open in each other that can't be unseen. For them, it was like waking up in a world of black and white and suddenly discovering color for the very first time. Before you, they lived with that low ache, that quiet emptiness they didn't know how to name. They thought it was normal, just the way life is. But you showed them a different dimension, a level of vibrancy, aliveness, and depth they didn't even know existed until your presence painted it across their soul. And here's the part they can't escape. Once you've tasted color, you can't convince yourself to love the gray again. They can try. They can go silent, hold back, or pour themselves into what's safe and logical. But the emptiness follows them because you left an imprint they can't erase. They feel your orbit like gravity, a pull that scares them because they know the moment they step close again, they won't be able to stop. That's why they've stayed away in the physical. And yet, you've still felt them, haven't you? In dreams, in signs, in sudden waves of energy you couldn't explain. That's because distance in the physical never really cut the thread between your souls. Spirit is showing me this isn't the end of the story. It's more like a chapter that remains open, lingering in the collective energy. This person's silence doesn't mean absence. In fact, it's their soul speaking louder now than their words ever could. The reason you still feel them is because they are still here, tugging at the edges of your awareness, even if their body chooses the safer path for now. This thread is alive. It's moving in the unseen. And Spirit says, you've already shifted their timeline forever, just as they shifted yours. Give yourself permission to treat the hints as real, the dreams, the sudden memories, the quiet nudges, and not just as random noise. When a memory or a sign lands, pause for a breath and jot it down, or sit with it for a minute and notice how your body reacts. These small acts help you track what's moving beneath the surface and keep you anchored in your own truth. Don't feel you must interpret every sign right away. Sometimes the meaning comes later, in a calm moment when things settle. At the same time, keep living your life out loud. Loving from the sidelines or waiting in a loop will only dim the new part of you that woke up. Go on small dates with yourself. Try a class. Say yes to a quiet walk. Speak one honest thing to a friend. Those little choices teach your heart what safety looks like now. Not the old safe, but the one that honors your new depth. If the other person is still moving through their own change, that is their work to do, not yours to fix. You can hold the space with kindness, but you don't have to hold the whole story for them. Protect your time, protect your rest, and protect the small habits that let the new you grow stronger. Trust that as you tend to your life, the unseen thread will keep doing its work in the background, bringing what needs to move into motion in its own time. So if you're here at this moment, trust that you were meant to hear it. Trust that your heart isn't imagining things. Trust that the vibrancy you felt was real, and that your soul knows the truth even when logic doubts it. This bond may stay quiet on the surface for now, but deep below it is still unfolding, still weaving into the greater story Spirit has for you. Okay, this feels like a beautiful place to close the reading. What we've seen here is a reminder that your energy is powerful, your journey is guided, and Spirit is always working in ways you may not fully see yet. Trust that what is meant for you will always find its way, and you don't need to chase. Just allow yourself to stay aligned and open. If you feel called to dive deeper, the exclusive and extended version of our readings are available right now on Patreon and through YouTube memberships. That's where we really expand on these messages and explore the layers that spirit couldn't fit into this space. Also, don't forget to check out the community posts and today's energy reading updates. I love connecting with you there and hearing how these messages meet you in your own journey. Drop your comments below, share your personal requests, and let me know how this reading spoke to you. And if you'd like to keep the energy flowing, I've linked some other videos here that I know will guide and encourage you. I'll see you in the next reading. Bye for now.